Now, Rishi Sunak has confirmed he is going to press ahead with plans to ban disposable vapes amid concern about the rising number of children using them. I've never smoked, I've never used a vape, despite sounding like I've got a smoker's cough today. But joining me right now is a man who's done both, head of lifestyle economics at the Institute of Economic Affairs, the free market think tank. That's Chris Snowdon. Good morning to you, Chris.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you very much for joining us. Right, there's different aspects to this ban, so I just want to go through them one by one. Yes, no, whether you agree with any aspect of them. Banning disposable vapes, full stop, yes or no?
No.
Placing vapes, that the other e-cigarettes, not disposable ones, behind shop counters in the same way they do cigarettes?
No.
Limiting reusable vapes to just 4 flavours, so they're not bubblegum flavour to appeal to kids?
Definitely not.
And the end of the use of colourful packaging that appeals to youngsters?
Yeah, I'm not too opposed to that, actually.
Okay, we found one thing you'll agree with, sort of having it all pink and sparkly. Okay, why are you not bothered by that one?
I don't think that would have any significant effect on smokers who are thinking of switching to vaping.
Right, okay. So what is your objection to this? Because there's no doubt at all that a lot of youngsters are using disposable vapes and they're getting hold of them in shops. They're not supposed to. It's supposed to be for over 18s only. Do you not think a ban would limit that?
Well, there is a ban on it. That's the thing, right? It's illegal to sell vapes to kids. And as you say, they are very often getting them from shops. Of course, kids will get them from parents and older friends in the same way they get cigarettes. But there's a huge problem with illegal vapes being sold illegally to kids by unscrupulous retailers. And that's not going to change if this ban on disposable vapes comes in. Either the kids will just buy refillable vapes, and the government's not apparently going to stop them doing that because they're not stopping retailers selling the disposables, or they'll get black market vapes, possibly from retailers or from other people.
There's already a very big black market in these anyway, isn't it? Because, of course, they're cheaper that way as well. But I have to say, the explosion of the number of shops selling disposable vapes, all brightly coloured. I remember the first time I saw them in the shops going, what are those things? It has been quite extraordinary. But is there any evidence that more kids are perhaps vaping now than would otherwise have been smoking? We've seen a massive cut down in the number of people smoking over the years. It's happened over a number of years as people have become more aware of the risks of smoking, as it's become less social to smoke. The ban, I think it was 2007, it got brought in for smoking in pubs and restaurants. The ban on, on advertising and the putting a picture of someone with their, disgusting lungs on the front of the cigarettes rather than a cool manufacturer's design. All of these things had little effects, but I understand it was vaping. Vaping even got you out of cigarettes. Vaping is the thing that has really made a difference. Should we be welcoming vaping as actually the kids are vaping, not smoking, and that's a good thing?
Well, yeah, anyone who's even vaguely familiar with the evidence would rather kids vape than smoke. I mean, they would rather do neither, obviously. I'm not here to defend minors vaping. I don't like to see it. I'd like to see more done about it, which actually works, like enforcing the laws that we already have, as I've said. But there is clearly an element of displacement here, that kids are vaping rather than smoking. And we don't know how many of the kids who are using an elf bar would otherwise be smoking, but the number is not zero, right? It's nowhere near zero. So the government's playing a very risky game by trying to make the perfect the enemy of the good on this particular issue. It's going very hard on smoking with this ludicrous gradual prohibition of cigarette sales, which has its own huge problems. We can go into another day. But the policies on vaping actually act counter to that mission, because anti-vaping policies, in essence, are pro-smoking policies. Vaping and smoking are direct substitutes. If you clamp down on one of them, you are implicitly encouraging the other. And we've seen that. We have good evidence on this. The government's completely ignored from places like America when they ban various e-cigarette flavors, when they put a tax on e-cigarettes, even when they ban e-cigarette advertising, you see a boost in cigarette sales. Now, that is a genuine problem. Smoking is a much bigger health issue than vaping, vastly bigger, even though most of the public are no longer aware of that. And so the government's approach to this, in my view, is a bit schizophrenic.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? You've actually done a lot of work at the Institute of Economic Affairs on these unintended consequences, and it's like, oh, this is really easy, ban that, and then you see something else come up. I was talking a bit earlier on the show, in my day, the thing that sort of the kids who really wanted to get some sort of high from, or some sort of hit from, was glue sniffing. Incredibly dangerous. I mean, really, really bad for children's health. I'm thinking, again, don't want my kid smoking, don't want my kid doing drugs, don't want my kid vaping, but I definitely don't want her glue sniffing. You know, that. And is there an element where there is just a percentage of teenagers who are gonna try whatever they're told they shouldn't do, and they're gonna do it anyway, and it's probably better if it is something that is less harmful, like vaping?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather kids were using nitrous oxide than sniffing glue, and I'd rather they were vaping than smoking. That's not to throw in the towel and say, well, there's nothing we can do about kids doing illegal things. We can. I just don't think prohibition is the answer, as we've seen with drugs over the years. I mean, if you look at the number of kids who are smoking cannabis, I think there's more kids smoking cannabis than there are smoking tobacco, and cannabis has never been legal. So it's a matter of looking at
But isn't that an issue? And you mentioned this, enforce the law. We have the same thing with the nitrous oxide, and it is, the concern seemed to be the little metal canisters all over the parks on a Sunday morning, rather than what the kids were actually doing in terms of the risk to kids. But again, this is about enforcement of the law. You know, if someone sells a disposable vape to a 17-year-old or a 15-year-old or a 13-year-old, the fine, if they get caught, very unlikely, it's £100. If that fine was £10,000 for anything that you're not supposed to sell to a child, £10,000, and you have to have seen ID, and three strikes and you lose your trader's license, they're not going to risk doing it.
Yeah, it's really quite difficult now for anybody under the age of 18 to buy vodka or to buy cigarettes. Hasn't always been like that. It's like that because trading standards go around.
I think it's hard for anyone who doesn't have ID saying they're 18. I know a lot of 17-year-olds.
Well, yeah, but maybe
they don't seem to have any trouble getting it.
No, but I mean, you haven't got 11-year-olds buying them, which seems to be the case with disposable vapes. And the added dimension here is, the government doesn't want anybody to use drugs, and so we have total prohibition of drugs. Okay, fine, but the government supposedly does want a lot of adults, i.e. smokers, to use vapes. There are 2.6 million adults using disposable vapes. I don't think people realize quite how many adult consumers are out there, because people talk about kids all the time. What are they going to do when they ban disposable vapes? Well, some of them will go to refillables. Fine, that's better for the environment, cheaper in the long run. But clearly some of them are going to go back to smoking. And there's a reason that these people didn't switch to vaping before disposables came along. And if the adults can easily switch to the refillables, which proponents of this ban would argue, what's stopping the kids doing it? So long as we're not cracking down on the retailers selling vapes, what's stopping them selling cheap refillables?
Okay, so we're in favour of disposable vapes, bubblegum flavoured. As long as they're not pink, then it's okay, with Chris Snowdon from the Institute of Economic Affairs. Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate that.